Folks have been fascinated with paranormal occurrences and the supernatural since time immemorial. And over the years, some of the true believers have amassed collections of artifacts, talismans, and what they consider to be proof and affirmation of their firmly held faith in the metaphysical, often spending absurd amounts of money on what they view as rare or irrefutable antiquities. But for every true believer, there are a dozen con men, all too eager to cash in on those perhaps naive spirit realm enthusiasts. Spectral snake oil salesmen who take advantage of those who want nothing more than to have their convictions validated. And in The Sundog, Stephen King tells a tale of what can happen to one of these occultist con men when his long history of deceit and refusal to believe catches up to him. Hi there, I'm your host, Mr. Doyle, and this is a great undertaking. If you're interested in occultist collectibles, Stephen King, and otherworldly demon dogs being birthed forth out of a Polaroid camera which was forged in the fires of hell, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. This is the sixth and final video in the 4 Past Midnight series, in which I will be discussing the fourth novella from Stephen King's 1990 publication, 4 Past Midnight, which is entitled The Sundog. If you'd like to check out the rest of the 4 Past Midnight videos, I've left a link in the description below. Alright, so The Sundog is a fun, fast-paced story of the supernatural, and while I maybe have some questions regarding the hows and the whys, it is ultimately an enjoyable read. So here's a quick recap before we get into the true believers, the Mad Hatters, and those who take advantage of them. The Sundog, a brief summary. When Kevin Delavan gets a brand new Polaroid camera for his 15th birthday, he is ecstatic. It's just what he wanted, but he soon discovers that the camera is defective and that no matter what he takes a picture of, the camera spits out what appears to be the same photo over and over again. That photo being of an old picket fence and what appears to be a stray dog. Only the more photos he takes, the more he begins to realize that the image in the pictures is slowly, gradually changing. And while at first this anomaly appears to be some sort of bizarre manufacturing mishap, it becomes clear that there is something else going on here that cannot be explained away quite so simply. Kevin decides to take his Polaroid and the pictures it has produced to local tinkerer, collector, and known swindler Pop Merrill to see if the weathered old bastard can help him figure out just what is wrong with his birthday gift. Pop seems eager to help Kevin get to the bottom of this mystery, and he is very interested, but being the con artist that he is, he also recognizes the potential to use this opportunity to his own benefit. Pop instructs Kevin to take a series of photos over the course of the next few days and to come back with the pictures once he has completed his task. Pop then takes the photos and has them spliced together into a video which shows that throughout the succession of shots, there is in fact a gradual change taking place. But while they've discovered that they're now watching some scene play out from some other where and some other when, they're no closer to understanding just what is happening or why. Kevin, now fully convinced that the camera is possessed by some unknown evil, decides to destroy the camera, and Pop agrees that is what needs to be done. Only Pop swaps the young man's Polaroid with another identical camera, so when Kevin smashes it to bits thinking he has rid himself of the diabolical device, he couldn't be more wrong. Pop, of course, has other plans for the camera and tries to sell it to a handful of collectors he knows that are particularly interested in the unusual and the seemingly supernatural. However, none of them are interested in purchasing the camera after all. Some refuse the offer because they assume it's an obvious trick. Others refuse because they are convinced the camera is truly possessed by a dangerous, malevolent force. But regardless of their reasons, none of them want anything to do with it. Pop, of course, is perplexed that he can't sell the damn thing, can't give it away, and all the while his cynicism and rationality leave him unable to acknowledge or believe in the potential paranormal implications the Polaroid presents. As time wears on, the camera and the forces within it take hold of Pop. He loses touch with reality. He becomes subservient to the will of the Polaroid camera. And Kevin, through a series of vivid dreams and undeniable intuitions, suddenly understands what has happened and what Pop has done. Most importantly, he understands that if Pop isn't stopped, he will bring the mysterious dog creature from the photos snarling forth into their world. And while it may be too late for Pop, Kevin does what he can to save himself from the otherworldly animal. History and inspiration. In the foreword to The Sundog, King discusses where he views himself as a writer at this point in his career, and he describes how he sees the stories as microcosms of what we call real life, and his use of small town as a microcosm of society. In particular, he focuses on Castle Rock, the small town setting in which a great many King stories occur, which is where The Sundog takes place as well. According to King, The Sundog was intended to be the connective tissue that would thread together his two novels, 1989's The Dark Half and Needful Things, which would see publication in 1991. As for what ultimately inspired the story, Tabitha King, Stephen's wife, had taken up photography and had picked up a Polaroid camera. These snapshots began to fascinate King, who states, quote, "I had seen and used Polaroids before, of course, but I had never really thought about them much, nor had I ever looked closely at the images these cameras produce. The more I thought about them, the stranger they seemed. They are, after all, not just images, but moments of time, and there's something so peculiar about them," unquote. And so, as is often the case, a seemingly ordinary instance worked its way into King's mind, where it gradually smoldered and gestated in his subconscious for about a year before the story finally took form and found its way back into the front of the writer's mind. While I was looking for information regarding King's story, I also came across a fun fact about where the name The Sundog likely came from. A sundog, or mock sun, which is called a perihelion in meteorological terms, is an atmospheric optical phenomenon that consists of a bright spot to one or both sides of the sun. These optical illusions are caused by the refraction of sunlight by ice crystals in the atmosphere. Sundogs typically appear as a pair of subtly colored patches of light around 22 degrees to the left and right of the sun, and at the same altitude above the horizon as the sun. Look at that, I'm an educational science channel now. Thanks, Wikipedia. So that's where King got the idea for The Sundog, and as always, I'm envious of the man's imagination and his ability to find and extract a story from something seemingly commonplace and ordinary. He so often finds a way to ascribe a fantastic, sensational meaning to the ostensibly mundane and unremarkable. Much like those who covet and collect supposed artifacts of the macabre and the supernatural, seeing and creating ghosts where there are none. But before we move on to our next segment, won't you please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and following along as I continue to make my way through everything Stephen King has ever written, while also shoehorning in topics that are of particular interest to me, which are perhaps only tangentially related to the story I'm supposed to be talking about. Please, thanks in advance. The Mad Hatters. When Pop Merrill absconds with Kevin's peculiar possessed Polaroid Sun 660, he already has plans for it. He keeps a mental file, so to speak, of everyone he has ever done business with. He keeps a mental file, so to speak, of everyone he has ever done business with who deals in the macabre, the inexplicable, and seemingly supernatural. Not that Pop himself believes in all that metaphysical mumbo-jumbo. Of course not. Pop is too rational, too business-minded to ever consider for a second that what the camera is doing could possibly be some otherworldly anomaly. No, but Pop knows a few of what he refers to as his Mad Hatters, who are typically wild about that sort of thing. Those who not only believe in, but purposely acquire haunted objects. Perhaps you're already familiar with Ed and Lorraine Warren. The couple and their ghost-hunting exploits have been immortalized in the 2013 film The Conjuring and the subsequent slew of spin-offs and sequels that make up the Conjuring universe, an 8-film franchise that began a decade ago, of which I have somehow seen 0 installments. Ed and Lorraine Warren were the preeminent paranormal investigators who are largely responsible for popularizing and normalizing supernatural studies and pseudosciences like demonology and clairvoyance, and are mostly to blame for bullshit shows like Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures. But on top of their work as paranormal investigators, during their lives the Warrens were also collectors. They had amassed quite the collection of purportedly possessed possessions over the course of their abnormal adventures, and were undoubtedly just the type of people Pop Merrill would have considered to be among his Mad Hatters. Those whose fascination with and belief in hauntings and talismanic objects is entirely genuine. In fact, the Warrens converted part of their house into a shrine of sorts, a museum of horrors to commemorate all of the encounters with evil spirits and vengeful specters that comprised their careers. They charged admission to what they called Warren's Occult Museum, which was described as follows by the website Atlas Obscura. The eccentric collection contains everything from an alleged vampire's coffin to a child's tombstone used as a satanic altar. Death curses, demon masks, and psychic photographs line the museum's walls, accented by a Halloween store's bounty of plastic props, assumedly for mood, unquote. However, it is debatable whether or not Ed and Lorraine were in fact true believers or world-class phonies who were deeply dedicated to their very elaborate long-game grift. The Warrens are, of course, not the only accumulators of occultist oddities out there. In fact, nephew of Ed Warren, a man named John Zaffis, has been following closely in his uncle's footsteps. Like Ed and Lorraine, Zaffis fancies himself a paranormal investigator, and he also has assembled a collection of cursed artifacts and dubious relics which he displays for public viewing. In an episode of The Unexplained, which is somehow a show on the History Channel that labels itself a documentary series, and is of course produced by the same people who make Ancient Aliens and is shockingly narrated by William Shatner? Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Both the History Channel and Shatner. Anyway, on an episode of The Unexplained, there was a segment entitled Terrifying Collection of Cursed Objects Hidden in Ohio, in which a couple, Greg and Dana Newkirk, show off their own private collection of demon memorabilia and tell a story of how they pulled nails from the eyes of a wooden figure a hiker had found in the Catskills, and how in doing so they released the evil spirit contained within the less than ornate effigy. The segment is very matter of fact, and there is little to no scrutiny or critical lens applied. The History Channel just presents the objects and the Newkirk's claims as if they're all proven and factually sound. However, they do have the good sense to use the occasional loose language that gives them some plausible deniability, but ultimately it all equates to bullshit. I also think it's relevant to point out that The Unexplained also has episodes with titles like Shape-Shifting Otter Man Targets Humans, This Dog Sees Deceased Owner, and Bret Michaels pointed toward his destiny by ghost. That's Bret Michaels from 80s glam band, glam metal, I guess? Poison? Those titles just make me laugh. Frickin' Otter Man? What? Anyway, just in case you had any misgivings regarding the show's legitimacy, I'm sure that will help to solidify your faith in the History Channel. But the real question is, do they believe, do these collectors actually think they are in possession of haunted objects? Or is it all one big con? I mean, either way, I'm not convinced. If you can't tell, I'm more of a Pop Merrill type. I don't believe in ghosts, possessions, hauntings, or, well, much of anything of that variety. However, I consider myself to be more of an agnostic than an atheist when it comes to matters of the spirit realm. I've always been a firm believer that I couldn't possibly know with any certainty what the fuck is going on in the universe, whether it's God, the spirit realm, the afterlife, heaven, hell, or whatever. If there's one thing I know for sure, it's that I don't know. I have a few people in my life who hold firmly to their beliefs, and honestly, I'm a little jealous what it must be like to know for sure, with conviction and certainty, that the thing you believe is the truth. It is a bit arrogant, though, you know. It takes some serious faith in oneself to wholeheartedly believe that all of the possibilities of all of the theories, the thing you believe specifically is the truth. That's the difference between Pop Merrill and I, though. I can be persuaded. I can be moved by evidence and by observable, undeniable facts. Whereas Pop refuses to accept what is right in front of him until it's too late. I've seen enough horror movies and read enough books to ever dismiss the inexplicable outright if confronted with it, but I've just never had an encounter or experience that has convinced me of the existence of any paranormal or supernatural anything. What can I say? I'm inherently skeptical. But if you do believe in ghosts and haunted objects, if you are convinced they exist, I wouldn't belittle or degrade you. It's just going to take a little more than an anecdote, a story of a personal experience, or the word of a self-proclaimed demonologist who financially benefits from his relationship to the spirit realm to sway me. Final thoughts. Of the 4 novellas in 4 Past Midnight, The Sundog feels like the most classic horror thriller story. It's intense, bizarre, and inexplicable. Like the other stories in the collection, it deals with time and alternate realities, but those themes are secondary to the increasingly threatening terror of the lurking, murderous beast. And even though I don't believe in possessions or haunted objects, I can still appreciate a good monster story for what it is, especially when it comes with a healthy dose of inevitable impending doom. You should read it. Alright, so that's it for the 4 Past Midnight series, and, well, I'd be lying if I said I was looking forward to making my next video. It's supposed to be for the TV show Golden Years, which was written for the screen by Stephen King, but it looks awful, and I'm just not excited about it. I've been considering trying a new approach to my videos, and I don't know, trying to figure out a way to switch it up a bit. I'm going on my 3rd year of making these videos, and I guess it can get discouraging at times. All of my most recent videos I've pretty much tanked. So it seems like I should maybe recalibrate, you know? Like I might take a few weeks off to figure out what I'm doing. But then again, I might not. I guess we'll see. Anyway, to those who have been watching and commenting, even those of you who like to, actually, me in the comments every other week, thanks for sticking around. I'll see you soon. Okay, goodbye. Be sure to click like and subscribe to the channel for my continued analysis of all things Stephen King, pretty pleased with Blood and Guts on top. My name is Mr. Doyle, and this has been a great undertaking.